Welcome back to the Smith Nerds, everyone, and today it is a very special anniversary. It is the 26th of February 2026. It is the 5-year anniversary of when this channel reached 100 subscribers, which is pretty cool. But that's not the reason we're making this video. It's to this very day is the 40-year anniversary of something. But what is it? I'm trying to remember. Hello, Goku. Can you remember what anniversary today is? Okay, yes. Oh, it's the 40th anniversary of Dragon Ball. Right. Thank you, Goku. Yes, today we celebrate 40 years of Dragon Ball. Kind of. So technically it's not the 40th anniversary of the franchise, because that was back in 2024. Because 1984 is when the manga was first being published, but when Akira Toriyama was writing it. But of course, R.I.P. to that great man. It's been nearly 2 years now since he's been gone. How crazy is that? Nearly 2 years already since we lost him. And if you may have noticed, from March 2024 onwards, I've outroed pretty much every single video on this channel with the phrase, "until we meet again," because that's a very synonymous phrase with Dragon Ball, with endings for Dragon Ball. And I felt that it's a nice way to honour Akira Toriyama in every single video with that phrase. But yeah, it's not exactly the 40-year anniversary of Dragon Ball, the franchise, but today is the 40-year anniversary of the Dragon Ball anime. Yes, 40 years ago, today, Dragon Ball Episode 1 was first released in Japan, where Goku and Bulma met for the very first time, which proceeded with Goku getting hit by Bulma's car, throwing it, and Bulma whipping out a gun and shooting Goku in the head. That's how Goku and Bulma's first meeting came to be. So I originally planned on making this video a video just talking about my love for the franchise, and we're still going to do that. But exactly a month ago, there was a big event where a lot of announcements relating to Dragon Ball happened. So I think I'll talk about those as well, but we'll save those for later. So I think I'm going to start with a quick recap on how I even discovered Dragon Ball. I have made an entire video on the channel about that, but that was like 8 years ago. Been a while. Basically, back in 2007, when I got my first ever PS3, my cousin gave me a bunch of PS2 games, and this was the old PS3, the one that could actually play PS2 games, and 2 of those games were Dragon Ball Z Budokai and Dragon Ball Z Budokai 2. That was my first exposure to Dragon Ball of any kind, the first 2 Budokai games, and I really like both of them. Of course, I played a lot more of Budokai 1 due to, of course, the remaster that came out in 2012. And that's the way I've also played Budokai 3. Still don't really understand why Budokai 2 wasn't part of that collection. It really should have been. But yeah, that is how I discovered the franchise, and if you played the European version of Budokai 1, like I did in the UK, for example, that version of the game on PS2 doesn't actually have an English dub. You can only play the game in Japanese, which was the first time I'd heard Japanese being spoken ever. I'd never heard Japanese being spoken before then. So I have somewhat of nostalgia for the original Japanese of the show and the games, because I grew up with one of them, with the Japanese dub for one of the games. I also grew up a lot with the English dub, and as good as the English dub is, I utterly despise the people that work on it. You should probably know why by now, but I will bring this up again in a video in just over a month, because it'll be more relevant there. So I started playing more Dragon Ball games. Since then, I've played 17 different Dragon Ball games. No, I'm not going to list all of them off right now. And in 2010, that same cousin who gave me the PS2 games told me that these games, the two Budokai games, were actually based on a TV series, and they weren't just their own thing. He showed me what Dragon Ball was, which was not my first ever exposure to anime. No, my first exposure to anime was when I was even younger than when I was like 5 or 6, and it was Pokemon. That was my first ever exposure to anime, despite the fact I didn't know what anime was back then. But yeah, he showed me that Dragon Ball was a series, so I started watching the original and then Z. And a couple years ago, I think in 2024 or 3 or 4, I went back and watched Dragon Ball Kai again. So yeah, I very much love this franchise. It has been my favourite anime of all time up until 2021, when it got overtaken by the quintessential quintuplets. Yes, I'm mentioning the quintuplets in the big 2026. How many people have done that so far this year? But yeah, I will always defend Dragon Ball when it comes to people attacking it, because it is literally one of the biggest, not anime, but franchises just in general, because it has massive worldwide appeal. And I saw something recently about, would Dragon Ball be as big today if it was made today, instead of when it was made? No, of course it wouldn't. It was made in the 80s, so if it was made the same way now, no one would find it groundbreaking. But if it was made today, then a bunch of other shonen series, the huge, popular shonen series, today would never have existed. Naruto, Bleach, One Piece, My Hero, JJK, Fullmetal Alchemist, etc. A ton of these series that we all love wouldn't even exist if Dragon Ball wasn't made until today. So Dragon Ball does need to be given its flowers for that. It has inspired so many other series that people love. But now, let's get on to the things that I was not originally planning on talking about in this video until the Dragon Ball event that happened a month ago. So, in this event, it was quite a few new announcements for Dragon Ball were released, and I'll go from least excited to most excited. So we'll start off with a brand new Dragon Ball game that was announced called Dragon Ball Project Age 1000. So for those who don't know, Age 1000 was a Korean Dragon Ball MMORPG game called Dragon Ball Online. And that game was set in the year Age 1000, because of course Dragon Ball's years work they're called Age, and then Age 7 something something. But Dragon Ball Online is set in Age 1000, and people are thinking maybe this is a sequel to Dragon Ball Online 17 years after the game came out, because it will be releasing in 2027. But we've also got some people thinking that maybe, just maybe, finally Dragon Ball Xenoverse 3 is coming. Because Xenoverse 2 has been, I feel like, commercially and financially, the most successful Dragon Ball game of all time. I mean, the game literally is still having DLC made for it nearly 10 years after it came out. I think if you price up all the DLC pack together that's been released since the game came out, I think it's like over $500, which would probably also mean over £500 just for DLC. I think how many people will have bought all of the DLC. Xenoverse 2 has been a massive financial success. Probably the most successful Dragon Ball game of all time financially. And I mean, Xenoverse 2 is my favourite Dragon Ball game, so I mean, it's nice to see for that. So people aren't really sure, but maybe because they're thinking it could be one of those two things. Because when Dragon Ball Online got shut down, I think just before the first Xenoverse game came out, a lot of the assets from Dragon Ball Online carried over into Xenoverse. Like Toa and Mira, two of the major villains in both games. Those two came from Dragon Ball Online into the Xenoverse games. So that's where people are thinking it could be Dragon Ball Online sequel, it could be Xenoverse 3. But we know very little information about it so far. Now, onto the thing I'm slightly more excited for is Dragon Ball Super Beerus. Now, that sounds like a movie, but it's not. Basically, in October of this year, October coming in 2026, Toei Animation are going to remake the Dragon Ball Super Battle of Gods arc that they made in 2015. Meaning this will be the fourth different time that the arc has been made. We've got Battle of Gods movie in 2013, the Battle of Gods manga, Battle of Gods arc in the manga in 2015, the Battle of Gods arc in 2015, and now the Battle of Gods arc remake in 2026, 11 years later. I feel like they're doing this because of just how bad the Dragon Ball Super started off. For those who remember and were watching Dragon Ball Super when it began in the summer of 2015, the first two arcs of Super got off to such a rough start. A really rough start. The animation quality was nowhere near where it should have been. Like, everyone remembers Dragon Ball Super Episode 5 and how dreadful the animation was when Goku was fighting Beerus on King Kai's planet. So Toei Animation have decided that they're going to remake the arc with much better animation, a lot closer to Dragon Ball Daima. They're going to be shortening the arc as well from 13 to 14 episodes, which is what it was, around to 6 or 7 episodes. So they've cut out a lot of the filler of the arc, shortening it down, and brand new scenes will be shown in this version of the arc to make it as close of a depiction to the manga as possible. And after that, they might be probably remaking the Resurrection F arc as well, because the animation in that at times was horrendous as well. So you could say this is probably, maybe if they remake the whole of Super, you could this could be seen as basically Dragon Ball Super Kai. That's pretty much what you could see this as. But now, time for the third and final announcement, and by far the one that's the most exciting. Dragon Ball Super The Galactic Patrol, aka the Morrow arc. Yes, finally, Dragon Ball Super, the Dragon Ball Super anime is returning and continuing from after the Tournament of Power. Finally. Next month, it will have been 8 years since the Dragon Ball Super anime finished at the end of the Tournament of Power. We've been waiting for years. We've gone through a global pandemic waiting for this arc. And finally, it seems the Moro arc is actually going to be animated, and the anime will be returning. The downside is there are leakers that saying that maybe we might not be getting the Moro arc to possibly early 2028. Yeah, that far away. 2 years, maybe another 2 years from now, maybe. Which is a big shame, but the fact we're getting it at all is, thank God. I mean, imagine, honestly, Bleach, Naruto, and One Piece fans, you have it so good compared to us Dragon Ball fans. One Piece has been going 1 episode a week, every week, for 26 years straight. Only now, this year, have they decided to tone it back a bit and make it 1 episode every 2 weeks instead of every week. Only now are they toning it back. Bleach fans had to wait. Had to only wait 8 years between. Well, no, had to wait around 10 years between the end of the main series and then the 1,000-Year Blood War arc. So you had to wait a bit. Naruto fans literally have never had to wait for anything. Mostly. The original series from 02 to 07, then straight into Shippuden from 07 to 17, 10 years straight, 50 episodes a year, 500 episodes. And then from 17 to 2021, before the show went on hiatus, Boruto. Yes, alright, Boruto's not very good, but the point is, you still got something consistently for nearly 20 years. Whereas for us Dragon Ball fans, after the end of GT, it wasn't until another 18 years before another anime series returned. Then it ended in 2018, so we had to wait another 6 years until another anime series, and then after that we have to wait another potentially 4 years for the return of the series from 2015. Honestly, Dragon Ball fans have had it rough in terms of getting to watch the series, new episodes of the series coming out. It's just a good job. The games are so good. So many of the games are great that have been holding us over until then. But yes, Dragon Ball Super's next arc that follows on from the Tournament of Power is finally coming at some point. Which means after that, the Granola arc will probably be coming. Then they'll do the Broly movie and superhero movies in arc form, like how Super started with Battle of Gods and Resurrection F. So they'll be doing that again. Because the manga is currently on hiatus, so after superhero there is nothing else that. Well, I guess we do have this. I guess this also means that Black Frieza and Ultra Ego Vegeta, we'll get to see those finally in anime form. We'll get to see those forms animated, which will be great. But yeah, that is going to be my video celebrating the 40-year anniversary of the Dragon Ball anime. It's also the first video I've recorded since the channel hit 300 subscribers. So thank you everyone so much for that. And it won't be until nearly another month before I can make a video properly celebrating this achievement, because I've got a couple of other videos planned already before that. But it's coming, don't worry. We will be celebrating this milestone, just like we did with the other two 100 subscriber special celebration videos. But that's going to do it for this video. If you have enjoyed, please be sure to leave a like, subscribe if you're new, and until we meet again, I will see you in the next one.